der ihn wohl gerettet hat, aber mit dabei sein kann er ebenso wenig. Und hier ist sein Stallgefährte im Hintergrund, Patrick Tambay, der auf der Startposition 4 steht. Und im Vordergrund einer der beiden Brabham BMWs, der BMW Turbo, da wird die Hand gehoben, der Wagen wird gestartet. Nelson Piquet direkt neben Patrick Tambay in der zweiten Startreihe und dort mit der Startnummer 9, das ist Manfred Winkelhock, der 17. war nach dem gezeiteten Training, dann 2 Plätze vorrutschte durch den Unfall von Lauda und von Pironi. Ein Wort zu Didier Pironi, die letzten Meldungen aus dem Krankenhaus.
非常に危ないんで、空中に舞い上がってノーズから路面に突っ込むような形で、クラッシュしてしまったんですね。今映ってますけれども、それで両足を骨折といっても、粉砕骨折、非常に悲惨な骨折の状態で、今、レスキューが駆けつけてますけれども、なんか見たくないものを見てしまったというような表情ですね。で今手前歩いている、横切っていくのが、画面横切っていったのはネルソン・ピケですね。後ろから走ってきて、事故の救助のために止まったんですが、手の施しをない。でこれはね、その前日金曜日にニキ・ラウダも、珍しいことにスピンしてるんですね。他者がスピン仕掛けたのを避けようとして避けたのはいいんだけれども、自分もスピンして、これ1コーナーですけれども、で今この網を突き破ってますよね。こういうふうにネットを何重にも張り巡らしてコースアウトした車の勢いを弱めようっていうのがこの頃の一番主流の考え方、キャッチ。
And the warm-up lap is just started here at a very hot and humid Hockenheimring, and with Didier Pironi out of the race, but with much better news of his condition today after a lot of surgery yesterday. Pironi is much better than he was. You see the 2 cars which are effectively in pole and second fastest place, Alain Prost and René Arnoux, leading round this Hockenheim circuit, the legend of which you see in front of you now. And as you will see, it is basically 2 long straights joined by the Os curve at the top with 3 chicanes. The one on the left has been changed from last year, and that leads into the stadium section at the bottom of the map, where there are a number of very tight and twisting turns. And the lap speed in practice was some 140 miles an hour, and they're just well on their warm-up lap now.
Yes, here they go, going out down the second half of the first main straight that is a feature of this circuit. Of course, it means with these 2 long straights and the slow chicanes breaking them up, that this circuit is very much a power circuit. Now that, of course, suits these fabulously powerful turbo engines, which and the turbo cars have, as expected, dominated practice. The fastest normally aspirated car is some 5 seconds slower in the qualifying. It's Michele Alboreto, who has impressed greatly this year with his driving and his consistency. He's the fastest in the normally aspirated car, driving his Tyrrell, and Lauda was very close to him, but sadly he's not with us today. So we have rather sadly a depleted field with, of course, terrible injuries to Didier Pironi, but the news of him this morning is better, as Murray has just said. Cars now going down into the second chicane on the long back straight. Now they head off down the straight, and then they come into the tight, twisty stadium section of the circuit, which of course is all surrounded by these big grandstands, and the crowd get a very good view of the cars for that section of the lap where they do all their twisting and turning. They're just coming down, that's the corner turning into the stadium. They go right, turn right into the stadium, 3rd gear corner, short straight, then they come down to 2nd gear hairpin, the Sachs curve. There's the Renault, turbocharged Renault, after their 1-2 wins in France, looking for a good result here to get their drivers back and moving in the championship.
Yes, and it's Alain Prost leading round. One of the 2 arrows seems to have had trouble on the warm-up lap, so that will be either Mauro Baldi or Mark Surer, who blew an engine in the warm-up period. It's Mauro Baldi, and apparently he's out of the race already, so that's bad luck, to put it mildly, for the Arrows team. Meantime, the familiar sight of the 2 Renaults coming up to occupy the top 2 places on the grid. Number 15, Alain Prost, now really effectively in the World Championship, although he is some 14 points behind Didier Pironi. And Alain Prost there. And there in the background, the man who won the French Grand Prix, much to the disgust of Alain Prost, René Arnoux. Behind Arnoux is Patrick Tambay. Behind Alain Prost is the turbocharged Brabham BMW of Nelson Piquet. That is Alain Prost that we're looking at now. 45 laps, 190 miles to go. And it's going to be very, very demanding because it is getting increasingly hot here at Hockenheim. Now, it looks to me as though everybody is running well. There is still a couple of officials right at the back of the grid, but they are holding them a long, long time on the grid. The drivers won't be very happy with this. It's green and go. And it is René Arnoux who leads from Alain Prost as they lead the stadium and go up the first of the long straights into the first chicane, which has been very much tightened, and we're watching and hoping that there's going to be no coming together at the chicane.
Yes, well, a very good clean start. We do have a bit of a question mark over Alain Prost's car. He had trouble in the warm-up with a misfire, and there is Nelson Piquet nosing past Prost. I don't know whether Prost's engine's all right. They got it fixed in the warm-up. It appeared to run all right, but it must be a bit of a question mark. Tambay already up into 4th place. He was quick in the warm-up this morning, and the Ferrari is really going very well indeed. Whoops, somebody going a little bit wide there, but they're all relatively safely through.
And De Cesaris in 5th position. So it is Arnoux leading Piquet, with Prost in 3rd position, Patrick Tambay there in 4th position. De Cesaris is 5th, and that was Brian Hinton coming up in the Tyrrell in 6th position. And I should establish immediately that we are expecting at least one of the 2 Brabhams to come in and refuel at roughly half distance. We were expecting this in the British Grand Prix, and now Piquet is challenging Arnoux, the leader, and it could well be that Piquet is only running on half-full tanks with soft tyres, in which case he could well take the lead as he comes into the motordrome itself in front of those 80,000 Germans. And if they see a Brabham with a German BMW engine leading, they will really go berserk. But it's not, because as we watch them through, in the lead still is René Arnoux. Behind him is Nelson Piquet. They're coming through to complete a lap. And there you see the positions. It is Arnoux, 1 lap completed, 44 to go. Piquet in 2nd position as they sprint across the line. And in 3rd position it is Alain Prost. 4th is Tambay. In 5th position it is De Cesaris. 6th is Patrese. 7th is Alboreto. And in 8th position is Eddie Cheever in the very much improved Talbot.
Piquet looking at every side to try and get round Arnoux. If he is running half tanks, he'll want to get Arnoux out of the way so that he can get away and build up the necessary lead that he's going to have. And he's got through. Piquet has made it past René Arnoux. He's now in the lead that he needs to be in to start establishing enough of a gap if he's capable of it to cover his pit stop. In fact, in France, the French Grand Prix, he was coming in on the very next lap before his engine blew up. So we were robbed at the sight of the pit stop. We're all fascinated to see how that goes.
And in my enthusiasm, I wrongly attributed Brian Hinton with being up in about 6th position. Apologies to Michele Alboreto, who of course it was. We are now on lap 2. And Nelson Piquet, who is leading in the Brabham BMW. And this time the crowd will see the Brabham with the BMW German engine in the lead when it comes into the stadium. And I expect an enormous roar from those 80,000 throats. And Piquet needs to establish a lead of about a second a lap if he is to build up enough of a lead to come in, slow down, stop, take on tyres and fuel, which they practiced today in just over, believe it or not, 11 seconds, if he is to build up enough lead to go on and win.
Well, the way he's handled this half a lap that he's been in the lead, he's streaking away at the moment. Sorry, he's already 2 seconds to the good, and he's only been in the lead for half a lap. So if he can maintain that sort of a pace relative to the others, he's going to be as Ricardo Patrese, who's also moved up to take his rightful place amongst the turbocharged group, rather than he's a little bit mixed up, didn't get a very good start, and had to fight past new normally aspirated cars. One car coming into the pits, I can't see who it is.
Eddie Cheever into the pits, and that's very hard luck because Cheever was well up in practice. They've got the Talbots going very much better than they have in the races so far this year. And Cheever with Lafitte was well up because Cheever was in 12th position. And as you see, the Talbot is up on the jacks. The V12 Matra engine behind it is not being looked at, but it's obviously skirt trouble because they're replacing a skirt panel on the near side of the Talbot whilst they are also attending to tyres, but it looks as though Cheever went off somewhere, damaged a skirt, and there, because we are now on lap 3, were the positions. It is René Arnoux in second place behind Nelson Piquet, and Piquet is already coming up to catch and lap the arrows of Mauro Baldi, who has obviously joined the race, and you can see the gap yourselves between race leader, world champion, number 1, Nelson Piquet, the man who won in Brazil but was disqualified, won in Canada, was second in Holland, and is in 7th place in the World Championship, and he's catching Baldi. And there is a distinct ripple from the crowd as they see the Brabham with its BMW turbo engine come into the stadium. And Piquet is really pushing it very, very hard indeed. He is out of the Sachs curve, into the Elf curve, now into the straight past the enormous grandstand. And the gap between Nelson Piquet in the lead and in second place the Renault of René Arnoux, with Prost's car already sounding a bit lumpy to me, but Piquet is leading by 3.7 seconds. Fourth, Patrick Tambay looks for the Scarlet Ferrari, the next car up of Patrick Tambay, the Frenchman who has taken the leadership of the Ferrari team now that the unfortunate Didier Pironi is out of the race. And there is René Arnoux, second place behind him, Prost, and Tambay in the background, you will see in 4th position, is right up with Alain Prost. So we have the prospect of the Ferrari turbocharged V6 of Patrick Tambay driving in only his 3rd race for the team, moving up into 3rd position. Elio De Angelis is in the pits in front of me. I don't know what the problem is. And into the pits too comes Manfred Winkelhock, and the German crowd will be very unhappy about that, and it looks to me as though he's out of the race. Look, he's levering himself out of the car, and the crowd will be enormously disappointed because Winkelhock, as a German, was carrying their hopes for a high place, not for a win, obviously. And Piquet now is some 5 seconds ahead of René Arnoux as we look at lap 4 at the stationary ATS of Manfred Winkelhock. And that is Piquet into the complex, into the stadium, round the 2nd gear Sachs curve at some 90 miles an hour. Well, let us all hope that the Brabham BMW is going to get well past the half distance, because it is at the half distance that Nelson Piquet is scheduled to come in and change fuel. And now the gap. Patrick Tambay, as we look at Jarier out. Jarier is out, and Patrick Tambay is up into 3rd place. The Frenchman in the Ferrari, the sole Ferrari in the German Grand Prix here today, with Jarier removing his helmet at Balaclava. His race hasn't been a very long one. And Patrick Tambay now, with the honour of Ferrari resting on his shoulders, is up into 3rd position, and that is Winkelhock.
Yes, well, Nelson Piquet is certainly streaking away at quite a fast enough rate. He's got over 4 seconds now on the field, and at that rate, pulling away at over a second a lap, he's going to be in a very comfortable time to have his pit stop. So really, it looks very much at the moment as if it's a question of reliability for the Brabham BMW. They've finished once or twice, but basically it is a new engine, and they're not easy to get reliable, these turbos. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Certainly we'd like to see the pit stop, because this should be an exciting new feature of Grand Prix racing. If these turbo cars develop more and more power, they drink more and more fuel, and the concept that it's quicker to go to treat it like two sprints and have a stop in the middle rather than fill them up with lots and lots of petrol is certainly an interesting one.
Well, I'm sorry you couldn't hear that long interview with Manfred Winkelhock, and I can't tell you what it was about, but I can tell you that the race leader here, Brazilian world champion Nelson Piquet, is now 6.2 seconds ahead of the second place man René Arnoux, winner of the French Grand Prix, and therefore Nelson Piquet, presumably on half-full tanks and soft tyres, is well on schedule for the 40-second lead he needs to have by the half-distance lap. Now, I say presumably, there is Arnoux, incidentally. Behind him is Patrick Tambay, and there is no doubt that Tambay in third position there, ahead of Alain Prost, Riccardo Patrese in the second of the Brabham BMWs, and in Cesaris in the leading 3-litre car, and that's the Alfa Romeo. Tambay is now only 2.3 seconds, or was when that caption was made up, behind the second place man Arnoux, and Tambay was quicker than René Arnoux in the warm-up today. There's Piquet leading, and we are on lap 6. I expect Patrick Tambay to go through and into second place ahead of René Arnoux before very much longer. There's De Angelis back in the race after his pit stop, and we are looking now at the arrows of the Italian ex-Formula 3 driver Mauro Baldi. And the order is Piquet leading, Arnoux second, Tambay third, Prost in fourth position, Riccardo Patrese in fifth position, and this is Nelson Piquet coming up to lap Baldi. In the background on lap 6 you saw René Arnoux, much further back than he looks on your screen in fact, and Piquet, that's how much faster. Piquet and the Brabham BMW, which produces some 600 horsepower from its 4-cylinder 1.5-litre engine, is than the Arrows. John Watson, by the way, is in 9th position, and Derek Warwick in the Turbo Tolman is 10th ahead of Derek Daly, 11th, and British driver Nigel Mansell is currently in 14th place. Brian Hinton is 16th, and this is Piquet streaking away into the right-hander, which leads into the very fast straight. Any particular problems, James, from driving this Hockenheim circuit?
No, it's a fairly easy one physically on the drivers, Murray, because with these long straights, you've got a good rest on the straight. It's not too bumpy, and a bit of hard work to the infield, but it's probably one of the easiest circuits to drive. The speeds are enormous, of course, but with the relative difference in power of the cars, there's not so much slipstreaming now as there used to be.
The speeds are enormous. For instance, in that chicane, which Piquet has just gone through, which is the second gear, he builds up now, and he's closing up on Eddie Cheever, who has rejoined the race, and chasing Elio De Angelis in the number 11 John Player Special. And he will now be doing a speed of some 160 miles an hour as he approaches the second chicane, the Bremskurve. And I can tell you that as Piquet closes up on Cheever there in the red helmet, number 11, Elio De Angelis, who is well down the field, I can tell you that already his Brabham pit crew, and we are only on lap 7 in this 45-lap race, and do not expect Piquet to come in until about lap 22 or 23. But already, as Piquet comes into the stadium, his mechanics that are going to refuel and retire the car are standing in the pit road in their immaculate overalls, 2 of them in crash helmets, and Piquet is driving past them. They're behind the Armco just there. They have these gigantic pressurized, what look like beer barrels, which can contain about 25 gallons of fuel, and the ovens, enormous ovens with wheels and tires inside them to heat the tires to race temperatures, are all ready. So be prepared for something really dramatic, assuming that Piquet lasts at least 25 laps. Closing on Elio De Angelis. And surging past him, De Angelis in the Ford V8 engines, John Player Special. And nothing can live with Piquet in this car and this circuit. Nelson is actually in his 59th Grand Prix here today. There's a view of the pit road, and that's Mauro Baldi.
Piquet just going past, or trying to squeeze through, yes. The concept of the pit stop is certainly very interesting, because these cars use such a lot of fuel now that when they're filled up to do a whole race, particularly the turbocharged cars, they're taking on 45 or so gallons of fuel, and that ups the weight of the car by over half as much again. So it makes a great big difference to the performance of the car, and that's what Piquet is depending on. If you had full tanks, he wouldn't be this much quicker than the others, but it's worth probably a couple of seconds a lap, or a second and a half a lap anyway, to have half full fuel tanks. The cars handle very normally for some reason when they're half full. It's only when you fill them right up that they really struggle with the weight. And of course they're slower on acceleration. They're also slide more in the corners because there's more inertia trying to go straight on instead of round the corner. And Piquet is using it to excellent advantage at the moment. As I said before, he's well on schedule to have bags of time for his pit stop, which is just a shame that the race has got so spread out, because we've had a couple of pretty processional races recently, and we really need something to cheer us up and give us something to shout about up here.
Well, incidentally, if you're wondering what these numbers are in the top left-hand corner, it is the lap on which the cars are. And now there is the excitement at the present moment, which I forecast a little while ago. It is Patrick Tambay, number 27, in his 4th Grand Prix for Ferrari. And as I have said before, and I'll say it again, all the hopes of Ferrari and Italy, as far as the Maranello concern are concerned, rest on Patrick Tambay's shoulders now. He's right up with the second-place man, René Arnoux, and Piquet is now 11.5 seconds ahead of Arnoux. There is Arnoux in the yellow and white Renault, who seems to be able to hold off Tambay. Behind Tambay in 4th position, you see Alain Prost. He is ahead of the 5th-place man, Riccardo Patrese, and the gap between Arnoux and Tambay is a little under a second. Between Tambay and Prost, it is some 3 seconds. Prost is some 6 seconds ahead of Patrese, who is 5th, and Tambay is certainly much closer to René Arnoux than a second.
Ferrari, I would have said, is probably slightly slower on the straight line than the Renaults, because he's getting the advantage of the slipstream behind the Renaults, but Tambay making relatively little impression on the straight. And he'll have to get himself in perfect position to get past. He had a bit of a struggle getting past Alain Prost, and he's now seems to be presenting the same problem. He's dropped back a little bit through the stadium section. It's the corner that they're approaching now. He needs to do really well. He's got to do this one very well. The right-hander, third gear right-hander, to get onto the straight well, but he's not really close enough right now.
Well, you saw yourselves there what the gap on the caption was, but the gap between the leader, Piquet, and the battle for second position, that is to say Arnoux and Tambay, with Prost thundering along in 4th position, and they are now on lap 10 with 9 completed, is 14.2 seconds. Piquet then 14.2 seconds ahead of this battle with the Ferrari of Patrick Tambay, the 33-year-old driver from Cannes in his 53rd Grand Prix, with a 3rd place and 2 4th places. And the man who is called Prince Charming, that is Andrea De Cesaris, the young Italian, in 6th position. He was in 6th position, and that means that John Watson now will be on the leaderboard, because the 6th place man is in with 1 World Championship point. And here is Tambay, up and passing, is he? Yes! Patrick Tambay, who has moved ahead of Prost in the Renault, has now taken René Arnoux in the Renault, and the question is, can the Ferrari close the gap between itself and the Brabham BMW Turbo, driven by Nelson Piquet, that we expect to come in and make a pit stop round about lap 23, close up that gap enough to be able to pull away from Piquet when he has come in and retain the lead. Well, I'll give you the gap now, because there is Piquet going through, having completed 10 laps. And he's about halfway to his pit stop if our guess, and it has to be an educated guess, is right. Patrick Tambay is now starting to close up on Elio De Angelis and lap him. The gap is 16.05 seconds. And as you see, Piquet has put up the fastest lap so far, 1 minute 54, which is about on target for the warm-up session speeds. Piquet there, the leader. In second place, René Arnoux, now 14 seconds plus behind Piquet. Tambay into second place, of course, my apologies. Arnoux in third position, Alain Prost is fourth, Riccardo Patrese is fifth, John Watson is in sixth position, Derek Warwick now in the Turbo Tolman is in ninth place, Derek Daly is in 11th position, Nigel Mansell still in pain with his injured hand is 15th ahead of Brian Henson, who is 16th, and we are on lap 11 out of 45. And we're looking now at Tambay coming towards us. He's got Elio De Angelis that he has lapped between him and René Arnoux, but not for very much longer. Patrick Tambay yet to win a Grand Prix. James, the pressure on Tambay now that Pironi is out of the race, and this is only Tambay's fourth race in the Ferrari, must be absolutely enormous.
Yes, I think it's really much the same. I mean, in every race it's the same. You've got to get out there and do the best you can. He's, of course, carrying a big load, but he's all on his own. He'll be getting all the attention now. But it's certainly a sad thing for Ferrari, because Tambay is very good, very consistent, but he's certainly not the quickest driver in Grand Prix racing. He's not really as quick as the really quick boys, and I think that's the gap that Ferrari are going to find difficult to fill. My guess is that they won't try and replace Pironi during the season, but which is a sad thing, and I rather hope that they do if they can.
Alain Prost is coming into the pits. Alain Prost, who was in fourth position, and there he is into the pits. We've seen this so many times this season. The French Grand Prix was a notable exception when the two Renaults of Arnoux and Prost finished first and second. But time after time, Grand Prix after Grand Prix, we have seen the Renaults have some trouble or other and come into the pits during the race after doing extremely well in practice. Well, it looks as though exactly the same thing is happening again, and that means that John Watson is moving up into fifth position. Indeed, has already done so. Now, Alain Prost had all sorts of problems. Yesterday, for instance, his race car had the near side rear wheel torn off, the offside rear wheel torn off it in that dreadful crash with Didier Pironi's Ferrari. He went out in his car this morning and had some sort of a misfire, which they thought they had put right, but it looks as though, in fact, the Renault personnel have not been able to put it right. Now there is Nelson Piquet coming through to complete his 12th lap, which I estimate to be about halfway to his pit stop. Now, Warwick, by the way, has lost 2 places. He's gone down to 11th position as Nelson Piquet goes through to complete lap 12.
Yes, it really is I don't know what's wrong with the Renault team this year, but really a Grand Prix car. This of course, Prost was driving the spare car, because although they repaired his race car that got damaged in that terrible accident yesterday, they decided not to run it, to press on to setting up the spare car. But it really is a disgrace for the team with their resources, their money, and their commitment to racing and to doing it properly. You should come here and run a car that misfires. I mean, it really is a disgrace. There's no excuse for it, because it's not a strange thing, a shot in the dark. It's been happening to them at nearly every race this year, and they must really have only themselves to blame for the fact that they're not right up at the front leading the championship, because their car's been wonderfully quick everywhere. but they've had all these niggling problems, and the organisation must be in some sort of disarray.
Well, it may not be a riveting struggle for the lead as we look at Nelson Piquet, who has now, as you see, completed 12 laps and is on his 13th. But it is a tremendously interesting and exciting and significant one, because, I will say it again, Nelson Piquet has got to build up lead if he is not foxing, and if the Brabham team isn't foxing. I say that because at the British Grand Prix, when the Brabham team made all the fuss, and rightly so, about refuelling, they were in fact foxing, and that is one of the Talbots. It's Eddie Cheever's. You can see him kneeling in the back of the car, and it looks as though Cheever too is out of the race. But we found out subsequently that the Brabham team were foxing at the British Grand Prix, and they had never intended Nelson Piquet to come in, whereas he was definitely going to come in at the French Grand Prix, and we believe he is going to do so here. By the way, you will notice as the drivers go over the start line that there is a white tape across the road. Well, there's a bit of a humorous story behind that, because the Brabham team have laid a big red and white stripe from the beginning of the pit up to the exact point where Nelson Piquet or Patrese or both of them will have to stop and refuel. The Williams team this morning ran an extension of that white tape sideways across the pit road and into the Arco. Needless to say, nobody takes any notice of it, but it got a good laugh here today. Now, Nelson Piquet that we are looking at is leading. In second position, it is Patrick Tambay. And now into the pits comes Riccardo Patrese, who was in fourth position. Now, that is significant because Patrese in the Brabham BMW, there he is. Is this a refuel job? No, it looks to me as though the smoke from the engine means there's trouble. But it does at least enable you to see the way the Brabham mechanics are kitted out. And Patrese is out. There you see Riccardo Patrese out of his car, and the BMW turbo engine, I presume, has blown. I don't think it was anything else. There was that telltale puff of smoke from the back.
Yes, he was still running when he came in, but whatever the trouble is, it's obviously terminal. They're wheeling the car away into the garage to get the pit clear and ready for Piquet's anticipated scheduled stop. So that's an unfortunate thing for Brabham's and their BMW engine, which has gone so very, very well, but is still yet to find its full race reliability.
You will recall that it was almost exactly this situation in the French Grand Prix, except that Patrese was in the lead. He came in with his car on fire. Nelson Piquet, that we're looking at now, in the lead of the German Grand Prix on lap 15 by 19 seconds, then took the lead in the French Grand Prix and blew up just one lap before he was due to come in to make his pit stop. So, as we look at Nelson Piquet on lap 15 in this 45-lap race, therefore it is 1/3 race distance. He is leading by 19 seconds from Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari. In third position it is René Arnoux. In fourth position now it is John Watson. In fifth position it is Keke Rosberg. And in sixth place it is Michele Alboreto.
Erster Zeuge des Geschehens sind und uns diesen Boxenstopp mit den Kameras vergleichen.
Well, while this interview goes on, the significant things, of course, are that Alain Prost is obviously out of the German Grand Prix, the French driver who finished second in his own Grand Prix, and that is going to make a big change in the World Championship, because with Pironi leading the World Championship and of course out of it now with his terrible leg injuries, as we look at Nelson Piquet, John Watson, who is leading the World Championship 5 points ahead of Alain Prost, who is out of the race, and 6 points ahead of Niki Lauda, who didn't start. John Watson is in the points in fourth position, so if John Watson can keep going where he is or even improve his position, he will be very much improving his World Championship chances as Nelson Piquet comes through to complete his 15th lap now, 1/3 race distance. And although you can't see Derek Warwick, who is currently in 9th position again, I can tell you that unfortunately the Brian Hart turbo engine in the Tolman is sounding rather sick. Let's hope it's nothing too significant. 15 laps completed by Nelson Piquet, #1, who is now lapping Chico Serra in the new F9 Fittipaldi car in Emerson Fittipaldi's team, the ex-world champion. And meantime, I look down as you look at Nelson Piquet coming into the second gear, Bremskurve 1, the first chicane, and goes up into the off curve, which is right at the top of this circuit, and then leads out onto the 160-mile-an-hour straight down to the second chicane, which was put in to slow the cars down. So fast were they going. And they're now doing some 160 miles an hour, down to 130 at this point. A daunting prospect, and now Nelson Piquet is coming through to complete his 16th lap. Very well in the lead, and I think on schedule to keep ahead of Patrick Torbay that you see in the background.
Yes, John Watson, meanwhile, is driving a very good race indeed, and he's leading the normally aspirated division of the 3-litre cars, and he's got quite a healthy lead of some 12-13 seconds over Keke Rosberg, who's leading the chasing group in 5th place, and Michele Alboreto, who's driving so very well this year, and he, of course, is 3rd in the Class B race for the disadvantaged 3-litre normally aspirated cars.
This then is 16 laps completed, as you see from the number in the top left corner of your screens. So the leaders are on lap 70.
Of course, with Didier Pironi's unfortunate accident yesterday, he will be, his lead in the championship, of course, is now academic. And John Watson is right up in the championship still, taking Pironi out of it. And 4th place or better, because Watson, if he can finish today, looks like finishing no lower than 4th. And that'll be useful points for him to keep accumulating. And he'll be hoping that he might get one or more retirement in front of him from the one of the turbos, and just inherit a good bag of points today.
That is Roberto Guerrero there, number 14, the Colombian driver who at last has made it into a Grand Prix in his own time. And there is Bernie Ecclestone, the czar of Formula One. And by the way, there is rumour of a Moscow Grand Prix next year. Alain Prost is back in the race. Now well down, in fact, as Piquet closes up on Guerrero, who is in 15th place, he has lapped Chico Serra, who is 16th. So Nelson Piquet, #1, leading the German Grand Prix on lap 17 as he comes into the Motordrome, this series of left and right curves. Second gear Sachs curve, now into the right-hand Elf curve. And Elio De Angelis has come into the... Nigel Mansell has come into the pits in the John Player Special as we watch Piquet start another lap into the right-hander. 17 laps completed, and as you can see, he's fairly streaking through the field. That is the second-place man, Patrick Torbay, who is now some 23 seconds behind Piquet. So it certainly does look, James, as though Piquet is on half-tank and is on top power.
Yes, I would think so, with that considerable speed advantage. And sadly, from the racing and entertainment point of view, it very much looks at his present rate of progress, he may well be able to pit stop and get out almost, if not, still in the lead. He would need probably sort of a lead of something like 35 seconds for a fully, and then a very successful pit stop is about the sort of time we could expect him to lose on the road. And at the moment, he's well on schedule for that. 23 seconds to the good already, and still going away at over a second a lap. About a second and a half a lap he's averaging, which is a pretty convincing margin. Tambay there, just coming into the picture now, chasing pretty forlornly in second place, but at the same time, he's working hard to pull away from René Arnoux' Renault, which he's managing to do. He has about 5 seconds over the Renault, and then after following René Arnoux, there's a pretty big gap to John Watson. He's nearly 30 seconds behind René Arnoux, which really does go to underline the immense superiority of the turbocharged cars. And whilst it's very, very impressive, it's a great shame that we haven't got a full field of cars that have at least fairly similar power output and performance, because then we see some close racing, and it really hasn't been very good these last 3 Grand Prix.
Well, the Abstand, the gap between Piquet in the lead and Tambay in second place in the Ferrari, you saw there was 24 seconds, as Piquet leaves the stadium and goes into the first long drag through the forest. I've got the stopwatch running on him. He's still the fastest, 1 minute 54.035, an incredible 133 miles an hour. And the gap between Piquet and Tambay is now up to 26 seconds, with Arnoux some 6 seconds behind Tambay in third position. John Watson some 28 seconds behind Arnoux in fourth place. Keke Rosberg 17 seconds behind Watson in 5th place. Michele Alboreto 6 seconds behind Rosberg in 7th place. In 6th position, and out goes Piquet. My goodness, it seems that the Brabhams are fated, and he has hit Eliseo Salazar, and he's furious. The Brazilian and the Colombian driver, I couldn't help it, said, and take that. Oh my goodness. Well, Nelson Piquet, understandably livid with rage. He has seen his chances of winning the German Grand Prix literally spin out, and there's Bernie Ecclestone maybe being told, Eliseo Salazar, we only saw the tail end of it, but obviously at the chicane, Piquet out, Salazar out, and that means to say that Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari leads his first Grand Prix.
Yes, and that really is a tragedy. Piquet, of course, is absolutely serious, and I don't blame him. To be pushed out by an inexperienced back marker is really a tragic way to lose a Grand Prix. It's happened to most of us, a lot of drivers, one time or another. Here we see how it happened. Piquet going up the inside to overtake Salazar. Salazar just driving into him. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Quite what Salazar thought he was doing, and I have to say that is an absolute disgrace by Salazar, and I'm just about as angry as I think Piquet is, because he's robbed us of the only interest in the race. Once again, we're robbed of seeing Brabhams in the pits, and Salazar really should be taken to task over that. It was absolutely disgraceful piece of driving, and Piquet is totally justified in however angry he gets. And I think it's quite frankly, Salazar was sorry, lucky not to be beaten up.
Yes, and Günther Schmidt, the billionaire German who owns the ATS wheel concern, will be very, very unhappy with Winkelhock out of the race earlier on, and now his second car gone because of that mistake. It looked as though Salazar missed his brakes in driving into Nelson Piquet. But whilst we seem to be fated, as I said, never to see this much vaunted Brabham pit stop to take on fuel and change tyres, with Patrese out, with Piquet out, Patrick Tambay now leads the German Grand Prix on lap 20, and there is the new leader. So Tambay leads, René Arnoux in second place, some 6 seconds behind Tambay. Now look for the yellow and white Renault coming round the right-hander there. There it is, and that's Derek Warwick touring. Derek Warwick touring in the Turbo Tolman. Tambay leads, Arnoux second. Watson is up into third position now with 4 points in prospect. Keke Rosberg is fourth. Michele Alboreto is fifth, and up into the points for the first time for a long time. Sixth position, Jacques Lafitte. Seventh position, Derek Daly. Derek Warwick was up to eighth, but looks as though he is out of the race. And Patrick Tambay comes through to complete another lap in the lead.
I'm still absolutely amazed by Salazar's driving, because it wasn't as if he didn't know the usual problem with back markers. They don't see you coming, but I mean, he made room for Piquet and let him go past, and then attacked him up the rear. It was the most extraordinary thing, and it again casts into question the experience and skills of some of these KLM drivers who come in. They bring finance of their own, sponsorship. They buy their drives. They don't earn the drive by their skill, and as I say, they pay for their way to get in the car, and it certainly casts a lot of doubts on the advisability of doing that, because Salazar has just ruined quite a lot of people's day with complete idiot driving.
And a very, very downcast Brabham pit crew as we look at the new race leader, Patrick Tambay, has packed away all their equipment, has removed the fuel pressure lines, has moved the pressurized fuel tanks, and have gone back into their pit. As Derek Warwick now, and we look at Tambay, Derek Warwick is touring into his pit in a rather sick-sounding Tolman, which hopefully we will see soon, as we look now at Roberto Guerrero, who is soon going to be lapped by this man in the Scarlet Ferrari, Patrick Tambay, leading. And as you see, the gap, the upstance between this man, number 16 in second place, Rani Arnoux, and the race leader is only 6 seconds. But that 6 seconds has been built up by Tambay, who caught and passed Arnoux. There's Tambay disappearing into the stadium, having already earlier on caught and passed Alain Prost. So the Ferrari is proving to be quicker than both the Renaults. There's the French Grand Prix winner, Rani Arnoux, and on lap 21 it is Tambay first, Arnoux that we're looking at second. Watson some 32 seconds now and behind Arnoux, and the leading 3-litre non-turbo car. Keke Rosberg is fourth, Michele Alboreto is in fifth position. 6th is Lafitte, 7th is Daly, 8th Giacomelli, 9th Sura, 10th Hinton, 11th Guerrero, 12th Serra, 13th Purcell, 14th Nigel Mansell, 15th was Warwick, but now will be De Angelis, and he's the last runner at the present moment, with Salazar very much out of the race. 21 laps completed, the leaders on their 22nd lap in this 45-lap race. And again, we've had this bitter disappointment of seeing both Brabhams go out before the half distance. But the interest now and the excitement now is, as we look at Chico Serra in the new F9 Fittipaldi, the interest and excitement is, will Patrick Tambay, the man from Cannes, number 27, win his first Grand Prix? It's his 53rd, the man who has driven for Ensign, for McLaren, there he is, for Theodore, and now for Ferrari, the Can-Am champion of 1977 and 1980, and Derek Warwick is still keeping going. There's Arnoux, second position, well spread out. There's the gap, the visual gap.
Yes, well, Tambay is well experienced. He's driven a lot of races, and he's been successful. Probably more successful the other side of the Atlantic in North America than there's ever been in Europe, but this looks as well as if it could be his big day. He's got a 6-second lead over Rene Arnoux, but so there is life in the race yet, you see, because as the race progresses, they're on different makes of tyre. Ferrari are on the Goodyear tyres, the French Renault on, of course, their French Michelin tyres, and wear patterns can change things, and we may yet get these two cars closing up, and let's hope we do and get some sort of a fight to the finish.
グランプリの予選での自己死、そして今度そのピローニ自身、それであまりいい背景からじゃないけれども、この年のワールドチャンピオンの目が出てきたわけですね。かと思ったらここホッケンハイムでピローニ自身が、重傷を負うと、それからその前のカナダグランプリではピローニポールポジションだったんですよ。でもスタートの同時にエンジンストールしちゃったところに、オゼラのリカルド・パレッティが追突してパレッティが、死んでしまうとかね、本当に悪いことがすべてフェラーリチームの身の上に、のしかかってきたようなシーズンでしたよね。結果として82年にコンストラクターズのタイトルフェラーリ取ることになるんですけどね、 その後は、シューマッハによる黄金時代を迎えるまで、フェラーリはずっとドライバー、コンストラクター両面のチャンピオンを取れないまま、冬の時代を過ごすことになってしまうんですけどね。
ゲレロを周回遅れにしていったタンベイですが、そういった意味ではこのタンベイ1人がフェラーリのこのシーズンある意味こう支えた部分もあるわけですね、代役としてね。
そうですね。このパトリック・タンベイ、フランスのドライバーですけれどもね、フランス人、この年フランス系、イタリア系のドライバーすごく多いですよね。でもその中でタンベイってちょっと異色のドライバーなんですね。アメリカのカンナムでもね、スポーツカーですが活躍した経歴からも分かるように非常にね、そのフランス人の中ではアメリカに近いんですね。で、ブルーのヘルメット見えますね。大抵のフランス人ドライバー、プロストもピローニもみんなそうなんだけれども、 GPA というフランス製のヘルメットをみんなかぶってたんだけど、これアメリカ製のベルです。それからね、長いことハワイに住んでましたね、レースに乗らないときは。多分だからアメリカのタイヤメーカーであるグッドイヤーとのね契約なんかがあって、アメリカでの活動がかなりメインだった時期もあるせいだと思いますけどもね、フレンチドライバーとしてはちょっと異色の存在でした。
先頭を走るタンベイ、
This engine that he's got now will be far below that. The gap is increasing slightly, as you see, 6.6 seconds. So René Arnoux' tactics, I would imagine, must be to hold station, to try to avoid dropping back any further, and to hope that something happens to Patrick Torbay's car to stop it, so that he, Arnoux, could go through and win his second Grand Prix in succession and his fourth in all. Patrick Torbay, lap 24, 23 completed.
Got a little bit of a tussle going on down the field with Jacques Lafitte has now caught Keke Rosberg and is having a little nibble at him in the stadium here, but unfortunately we're not seeing that on the screen. But it's still in store. Our good director will have a look at it for us because Lafitte is still behind.
Well, Arnoux, meantime, here he is in second place and has lapped Guerrero. Brian Henton, by the way, is now in 10th position. Derek Daly is in 7th place. John Watson is still in 3rd position. We haven't seen him as Patrick Torbay streaks through, and Guerrero is pulling off. Is it Guerrero or one of... I'm looking across the stadium as you look at Patrick Torbay, and it's either Guerrero or one of the John Player Specials. It's one of the John Player Specials because I see Guerrero just passing now. Here is Patrick Torbay. He is completing now his 24th lap, so shortly you will see that number in the top left change. And there is the Vazel's car. That is Raul Vazel, the Brazilian driver. And see the way the suspension and the drive shaft are being completely wrecked as he drives home on what remained of his tyre.
Yes, that happens if the tyre blows and shreds. They do a fair bit of damage around the back of the car, and as Murray said, you can see the wheel flapping there, and he'd done a fair bit of damage to the rear suspension, so that is a good night's dip for him.
Yes, and while we're looking at a march, it is worth establishing that Jochen Maas, the team leader for the march concern, actually turned out for practice on Friday, but he had 3 broken ribs after that dreadful crash he had for the French Grand Prix when he and Mauro Baldi came together. He opted not to drive. Rupert Keegan, the British driver who hadn't driven for 2 years, this is Brian Henton coming towards us, followed by Torbay who's about to lap him. Rupert Keegan tried to qualify the second march, but failed to do so. And while I'm talking about people who failed to qualify, it's worth establishing too that the Formula 3 top man in the British Championship of 1982, Tommy Byrne, has taken over the Theodore car from Jan Lammers. He valiantly tried to qualify, but just failed to do so. But there's plenty of time for him, although he's a very disappointed man today. Patrick Torbay leading almost at the end of his 25th lap in this 45-lap race. René Arnoux, we just saw quickly there, second. John Watson, that we have not seen for a long time, in 3rd position. Keke Rosberg is 4th. Jacques Lafitte is 5th. Michele Alboreto is 6th. And Torbay completes lap 25.
The director of the television service who are providing these pictures has failed to pick up the one battle that's raging. The feed has still failed, when they came past us here at start-finish line, it still failed to get past Keke Rosberg as yet. So there's a good tussle going on there, but unfortunately we might be resolved before we pick it up, because the feed, once he gets by, will probably streak away. His car's going very well today.
Yes, and we've said some pretty harsh things about the new JS19 Talbot Matra this year, and it has deserved it, because it has not gone at all well. But Jean-Pierre Jabouille, the Frenchman who is the team manager and ex-driver in the Talbot and Renault teams, has worked extremely hard on the Talbot, and was telling me just before this race began that they had revised the suspension and the skirts and the springs and the shock absorbers on the JS19 Talbot Matra, and we're certainly seeing the results as Patrick Tambay in the lead goes through the third chicane at the end of his 26th lap with 25 completed. He's coming up to Brian Henton to lap him. Brian Henton in 10th position, who qualified, if my memory serves me right, in 18th position. And look at that enormous crowd in the background. Some 80,000 of them sitting in this complex. And when a German driver does well in a Formula One car, I'm told that you can hear the noise of the shouting Germans in the grandstand above the noise of the engine behind you. Well, now you're going to see how quickly a turbocharged Ferrari in the hands of number 27, Patrick Tambay, will go in comparison with an unturbocharged, non-turbocharged 3-litre Ford-powered Tyrrell of Brian Henton. And Patrick Tambay just drives straight past with no trouble at all. There is René Arnoux going out of the stadium in second place. 26 laps completed. There's John Watson. We haven't seen him for a long time. Now, John Watson, winner of the British Grand Prix last year, who is leading the World Championship, is very, very handily placed at the moment to increase his World Championship lead. When I say leading the World Championship, I'm being a little confusing. It is, of course, Didier Pironi who is actually leading the World Championship, 9 points ahead of Watson. And John Watson is the leading runner still effectively in the World Championship. He is on his way, if he can stay where he is now, to score 4 points for third position, which would give him 34 points, which would take him second in the World Championship behind Didier Pironi, who would still be leading on 39. But Watson, who is ahead of Alain Prost, who is effectively out of the race from the point situation at the moment, and Niki Lauda, who didn't even start, doesn't want to do too much of that. Running a bit wide as he goes through the chicane there, going up onto the curb. And the object of the exercise for John Watson now, who is the leading 3-litre runner, must be to stay where he is. That's a Williams car. Is that Keke Rosberg's car? I wish they'd let us have a close look at it. It's Daly's car. Derek Daly out of the race. Derek Daly, who was in 9th position in the Williams, is obviously out of the German Grand Prix with his car parked by the side of the circuit, with Daly not in it. He qualified very badly indeed, did Derek Daly, down in 19th position, because he actually lost a wheel in practice and drove in on 3 wheels, much to everybody's consternation, and then had a misfire in the spare car. So things were certainly not going with him in practice. Equally, they are not obviously going with him in the race. But John Watson, on the other hand, in 3rd position, is nicely placed to do well in the German Grand Prix and improve his chances in the World Championship. That's Keke Rosberg, who is in 4th place, but where is Jacques Lafitte? Ahead of him, ahead of him. Jacques Lafitte has now got past Rosberg and is therefore in 4th position. There is the Finnish driver in the Williams, Keke Rosberg. And you just saw a quick flash of the blue. There it is. There is Jacques Lafitte back where his driving talent ought to enable him to be in the top 6.
近代的なレースの考え方、ちゃんとデータ重視して、予定された走りでピタッピタッとラップを重ねていくっていう考え方、エンジニアリング主導の考え方から言うと、はっきり言ってその愚かなドライバーかもしれないんですけれども、見応えはありますよね。
ただこの時は、ラフィーにも現在かわされて5位というポジションですが、ちょっとウィリアムズは何か問題があったんですかね。
エンジンですね、はい、DFV、このターボが登場するまで F1 のほとんど全てを走らせていたコスワースフォード DFV エンジンなんだけども、エンジン事実上ワンメイクに等しいですよね。となると今度は各チームごとのチューナーでね、細かいところ差をなんとかこう差をつけていかなきゃならない。一時のフォーミュラ日本のエンジン戦争みたいになったわけですよ。その中で、ウィリアムズが積んでるエンジンが一番パワーが出てた。だけど、この年のそのエンジンはね一番回っていたんだけれども、いざという瞬間にミスファイア出る傾向があったんですね。これはこのレースだけじゃなくて、どうも点火系に、何かその虫が潜んでたんですね。そうでなくてもこのホッケンハイムのようなところではね、一番パワーのあるその500馬力オーバーと言われているウィリアムズ用の DFV でも、ターボのトルクにはかなわなかったなというのが今出てますけどね。
さあロズベルクの前にラフィー、そしてラフィーの前にナイジェル・マンセル。
カナダグランプリでちょっとクラッシュして怪我をして、リハビリを兼ねてっていうと悪いですけど、
In agony in the British Grand-Pri, missed the French Grand-Pri, and he's having his first drive since the British. Not in the best of shape. Jacques Lafitte, 4th position.
A little bit annoying to have the JPS in front of him because it's allowed Peggy Rosberg to catch up the lead that the beat was established quite quickly, but he's safely through, and so he can safely through. Completely wrong. He made a mistake there. He ran it wide. He managed to get the thing back under control. So poor old Jacques Lafitte, one little slip. Here we go. I don't know what happens here. He got a big slide on. He got off, obviously, see off the line. The corner gets very slippery, rubber dust and things like that, which is not cleaned by the cars. And if you just get the thing out of shape off that, that's exactly the place where Nicky Lauda had his accident in practice, also getting offline. But no harm to Jacques Lafitte, as long as he didn't damage his skirts when he bumped over the earth there, and except that he's now got to start deal with Keke Rosberg all over again.
Well, Patrick Tambay leads on lap 30 out of 45 by 10 seconds from René Arnoux second, John Watson third. Keke Rosberg up to 4th position, Jacques Lafitte down to 5th place, Michele Alboreto in 6th position and the last World Championship point scorer at the present moment. Bruno Giacomelli in the Alfa Romeo is 7th, Mark Sura in the Arrows 8th, Brian Henton is 9th and Guerrero 10th, Chico Serra 11th, Mansell 12th, Derek Warwick, well, he's out of the race effectively, of course, but is still scheduled as being in 13th position. Now, Jacques Lafitte, who you see right in the background of these 5 cars, lost 4 seconds when he went off in trying to keep ahead of Keke Rosberg, who he had just passed. And we're going to put a stopwatch on the gap between number 6 Keke Rosberg, who is now in 4th position in the tag, the Saudi Williams car. Here he is. This is the FWO8. The short, wide, very common car, which was...
他にもね、フィンランドの若手のマネージャーとして F1 界、てかレース界、ヨーロッパのレース界にね、何人もの人材を送り込んでるんですよ。
そういった意味でこう F1 にもそしてレース界全体にも貢献をした意味というのは非常に大きいということですね。
ロスベルクの
In fact, it is some 10 seconds, and I think James's guess that Jacques Lafitte may well have damaged the skirts, the near side skirt of the Talbot is right. Now, if you wonder what I'm talking about when I talk about skirts, as Patrick Tambay comes through to complete his 30th lap with 15 therefore to go. Look at the gap between the wheels on the Ferrari there. It's difficult to see, but there is actually a special compound which drags along the ground. You can look underneath the car now, and if you imagine the air rushing underneath it and not able to escape, it actually creates a downforce on the car, pulls it down onto its tyres, and enables it to grip the road much better. So here is Patrick Tambay on his 31st lap, coming up to catch Bruno Giacomelli, the Italian driver, number 23 in the Alfa Romeo, who is in 7th position. There's Giacomelli. He's not had the best of seasons. Comes from Italy, although he lives in Monaco, Giacomelli I'm talking about, as Mark Schurer goes through in the Arrows. And Giacomelli, an ex-Formula 2 champion of Europe, there he is, the leader of these two cars here, actually led the Watkins Glen American Grand Prix in 1980, but this year the best he has been able to do so far is 9th position at San Marino, notwithstanding the fact that the Ducar Rouge, the French designer, Pierre Ducar Rouge, has produced a beautiful car in the Alfa Romeo, but it's never quite lived up to the promise that it shows. Now, as you look at Patrick Tambay in the Motordrome on his 31st lap, almost at the end of it, you'll see the numbers change soon, indicating that 31 laps have been completed by the leader, and he goes on to his 32nd lap. There it was. Alboreto is starting to move up through the field. The order now is Tambay leading by 12 seconds from Arnoux. John Watson is still in 3rd position. In 4th place, it is still Keke Rosberg. But up into 5th place has gone Michele Alboreto ahead of Jacques Lafitte, because indeed Jacques Lafitte has damaged the skirts.
Yes, that's the problem. The skirts are made of a fairly soft material. They run along the road, so if you go off and bump them over rocks and earth and things, they do damage very easily. And once the skirt is damaged and isn't doing its job properly, the cars lose a great deal of grip, and they really don't work very well. They absolutely depend on to get this huge amount of grip that the modern cars now have on their skirts sitting nicely on the road. So we would have to expect the peak to fall back and really struggle now. He might even come into the pits to change it.
Well, it's a good time to be talking about this, because you are looking at, in many ways, the driver of 1982. On the left, number 3, Michele Alboreto, in the unsponsored Tyrrell Ford. He's just passed Nigel Mansell. He has got ahead of Jacques Lafitte and up, therefore, into 5th position. And I believe he is closing on Keke Rosberg. We'll take the gap and see. Now, Michele Alboreto has had a wonderful season. This is only his first full year of Grand Prix racing. This 25-year-old man from Milan.
ただこの年のロータスの車はね、チャップマンそれほどなんかこう燃えてなかったんじゃないかなって気がするんですね。割り走りも平凡だし。
さあ、そしてこちらがブラバムのレースディレクターディーター・スタッパートのインタビューです。
For the dropout of Riccardo Patrese.
Riccardo Patrese had something go wrong on the engine, maybe a piston, we don't know yet.
Ich habe den Dieter Stappert, den Rennleiter von BMW, gefragt, was der Grund für den Ausfall von Patrese ist. Er sagt, es hat einen Maschinenschaden gegeben, möglicherweise ein gebrochener Kolben, aber er weiß noch nicht genau, was passierte. Anyhow, Dieter, bad luck for BMW and Brabham in this race. What was with Nelson? Did you speak to him?
No, he isn't back yet from the place he had the accident with Eliseo Salazar. As far as we could see from the pit, he had more or less everything under control. After 18 laps, he had about, I think, 26.2 seconds. Was perfectly on time. He was due to stop for fuel and fresh tires after 23 laps. By the way, he was gaining 1.5 seconds for 2 seconds per lap. He would have had maybe 35 seconds after the pit stop.
Anyhow, Dieter, thank you.
はい、という
やっぱり23周目にピットインする予定ではあったんですね。
そうですね。
ただやっぱりピストンがね溶けた、壊れたというのはね、この後も、あるいは次の年になっても、セッティング間違えるとね、例えば燃料の濃さ間違えるとか、点火タイミングのセッティングが違うとか、気温の変動とかでね、ターボエンジンには時々やっぱり起きましたね。はい、ですから、後にF1 界を制覇することになるホンダターボエンジンは完成期には 本当にノックセンサーというものでね、その瞬間の1000分の何秒という瞬間に、うまく点火タイミングをずらすとかいうそういう複雑なことまでやってましたよね。はい、これが、サーキットママの、連れてこられたチコセラ選手ですね。はい、
そしてその後ろにラフィーが6位でいて、セラはラフィーよりはさらに1周ダウンという状況なんですけれども、その後ろにタンベイということで、これもう6位のラフィーもラップダウンにしてしまおうという。
そうですね、これからさらにこれまだこの時点で1982年ですけれども、83、84となっていくに従ってターボとノンターボ2種類のレースを同じサーキットで行っていると、いうような状態になるので、今ティルル映ってますよね。
I think what happened was he was a bit caught out, and it was really a carbon copy of how Niki Lauda crashed on Friday. He was overtaking another car, and he went up it was nothing a back mark, and he went up the inside of the track rather than the normal line as he approached the corner. And I suspect what happened is that he'd pick up dirt then on the dusty side of the track where it isn't used. The tyres are very sticky, they hold that dirt, and as he turned into the corner, his cars were too slippery for him, and it took him very much by surprise, as it did to Nicky on Friday. So the track is obviously dirtier there than they think, and it was a bit unfortunate because he was actually overtaking somebody and was driving a very, very good race still then.
Well, watch this, because it's Alboreto in 5th position, and you saw just before they closed in on Alboreto, the white and green Saudi Williams of Keke Rosberg, who is in 4th position. Now, the gap a lap or so ago between Rosberg 4th and Alboreto that we're looking at in 5th position was 7 seconds. I suspect it is less than that now, in which case, of course, Alboreto is gaining, and in the running for 4th position, and the Williams doesn't sound all that healthy to me as it goes past, and the gap now is 7.75 seconds. So the differential is being maintained, but Alboreto is driving a superb race, and this is the man who is very much being propositioned by all sorts of Formula One teams this year for 1983, including, it is rumoured, Ferrari. Tremendous G-forces around these very, very fast bends, right-hand bends at the Hockenheimring. Alboreto into the chicane, flicks the car through. This is the off curve, right at the top of the circuit. He approaches it at 160 miles an hour. Now, there is Keke Rosberg. If you've got stopwatches running, make a note of one car passing a patch on the circuit, followed by the other, as I have just done, and I can tell you that the gap is 7.33 seconds. So Alboreto is closing marginally on Keke Rosberg, who is in 4th position. And we're coming up to the end of... There's Rosberg. There is Alboreto. Alboreto ahead of Nigel Mansell, and behind is the Scarlet Ferrari, number 27 of race leader Patrick Torplet. Into the stadium, Alboreto. It's a very quiet and restrained crowd here today. They're not seeing anything to stir their nationalistic fervour that they get when it's a German driver or a German car or a German engine out front. The gap between Rosberg now and Alboreto that we're looking at, which was 7.33 seconds, is now 7.73 seconds. So it looks as though Alboreto can't really do anything about it. 35 laps completed out of 45. We look at the 4th place man, Keke Rosberg, and the next man in the picture will be the 5th place man, Michele Alboreto. But now, there in the yellow and white Renault is René Arnoux, and the race order on lap 36 is Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari, who is 16 seconds ahead of René Arnoux in the Renault. In 3rd position, it is John Watson in the Marlboro McLaren. In 4th position, Keke Rosberg, just ahead of Michele Alboreto, 5th, and Jacques Lafitte, 1 lap behind in 6th position. In 7th position now, because Giacomelli in the Alfa Romeo has moved up into 6th position, and this should be him coming towards us now. If it is, and if he maintains his position, and it is, it will be to score his first World Championship point of 1982, because Giacomelli, the works driver for Alfa Romeo, is one of the very few regular Grand Prix drivers this year who has not yet scored a point. He is about to be lapped by the 2nd place man, René Arnoux, who comes out of his slipstream and decides to fall back in again. There is Jacques Lafitte, behind him is Chico Serra, behind him is Mark Fura, and you can see the damaged skirt of Jacques Lafitte's Talbot. The near side skirt between the front and rear wheels, look at it very closely, oh we move away, is completely missing, so he must have torn half of it off when he went round the right hander. Have a look now. Oh. Well, here is Giacomelli, still not being passed by René Arnoux. Arnoux going through to complete his 36th lap.
There's something dangling off the back of Giacomelli's car, but it doesn't look like anything very structural. It looks like a piece of string almost, or a wire or something, just off the back of his gearbox. Well, I've just noticed it on a couple of shots. But it certainly doesn't seem to be hampering his progress. He's really motoring on very well. He's fending off the Renault for a long way. Of course, the Alfa Romeo does have a very good engine. They've got that certainly the most powerful of the normally aspirated 3-litre engines. And they, of course, are still working on their turbocharged engine. We don't know when we'll see that, but it's a very good one. And there goes the Renault. He's finally slipping by, so Arnoux slips past Giacomelli. John Watson's really had a very good race today. He's something like 30 seconds, 33 seconds he is ahead of Keke Rosberg, they of course being the 2 leading normally aspirated cars, which as we said are at a big disadvantage against the turbocharged cars here. They just don't have the power. The turbos now produce a great deal more power, and this is a power circuit. But as I say, Watson has certainly pulverized the normally aspirated opposition. He's running in a very strong and very comfortable 3rd place. If he can keep that going to the end, he's going to pick up some very, very useful championship points indeed. Because of the swing that we've had in the situation with Corona's unfortunate accident, his points are now academic, and this will open out what will effectively be a World Championship lead yet again for John Watson. So that's good news for him if he can keep it going, and he's certainly looking to be in no bother at the moment.
Yes, and Patrick Tambay on his way to complete another race for Ferrari, and there it's John Watson. My goodness, I don't know what happened, but what tragedy. James has just been talking about John Watson's chances of improving his World Championship standing, and there you see the tragic, from Watson and McLaren's point of view, picture of the straddles, the sprayed wheels of the McLaren, and John Watson, who was in 3rd place, out of the race. So up to 3rd now goes Keke Rosberg.
Well, that's really a tragedy for Watson. We don't know what happened. We didn't see. The first shot we saw was the camera just went round to his car, already crashed in the park. We don't know why he crashed, but really it would be a tragedy. I have to suggest that I think it's very, very unlikely that John Watson made a mistake. He was not in a hurry. He's a very experienced driver, and it would be completely out of character. He's not a driver given to making unforced errors. It could have been a tangle with a back marker. It could have been a failure of some sort on the car, causing it to go out of control. But whatever it was, that's tragedy for John Watson and McLaren, because it was very, very important for him to pick up points in order to maintain his challenge to become, in his attempt to become world champion, and that will really hurt his chances.
And that is Jacques Lafitte in the pits, I don't know whether he has had to give up because of the skirt problem or whether something else has affected the tour, but for whatever reason, the German Grand Prix is starting to fall apart at the seams in terms of contestants left in it. We are now on lap 39 now, with 38 completed, and this is the situation. Patrick Tambay is leading in the Ferrari, René Arnoux, by 20 seconds. Out has gone John Watson, who was third. So up into third position comes Rosberg. To fourth position, Alboreto. To fifth position, Giacomelli. And into sixth position, Mark Schurer in the Arrows. Brian Hinton will be seventh. Roberto Guerrero, eighth. Nigel Mansell, ninth. And Chico Serra, 10th. Derek Warwick is 2 laps adrift at the present moment in 11th place. And those are the only runners, because Derek Daly, who had completed the longest distance of those who has already stopped, was in 12th position, but now out of the race. So Patrick Tambay on lap 39 passes John Watson's car. And what is this going to do for the World Championship? Well, Pironi non-started, of course. We are looking now at Tambay closing up on the new third place man, the lap him, Keke Rosberg. And in World Championship terms, John Watson adds nothing to his score. Alain Prost adds nothing to his score. Niki Lauda didn't start. Keke Rosberg, on the other hand, who was in fifth position, is in fifth position in the World Championship with 23 points, should be adding 4 to give him 27, and that will help him up into, I estimate, third position. But this is the picture you see of Patrick Tambay, car number 27, 33 years old, the man who said in South Africa at the beginning of this year, when he was due to drive for the Arrows team, that he wished to have nothing more to do with Formula One because he was so disgusted with the drivers' strike in South Africa and the resultant politics. Well, he took a long rest in America at his Los Angeles home, reconsidered things when he was offered this plum Ferrari drive after the tragic death of Gilles Villeneuve in that awful practice crash at the Belgian Grand Prix. And then Patrick finished 8th in his first Grand Prix for Ferrari in Holland. In the British Grand Prix, only his second Ferrari race, a magnificent third position. In his third Grand Prix for Ferrari in France 2 weeks ago, 4th position. And it looks now as though he's going to win the German Grand Prix. He is on his 40th lap, on his way to 9 points, lapping soon Keke Rosberg, who is in third position. Well, what's the plan of action, James, if you're in this position, coming up to complete your 40th lap with 5 to go with a very secure lead?
Yes, 20 seconds lead is a very big lead. Your entire operation, of course, is just to keep out of trouble, keep your nose clean, don't get tangled with back markers. There's no reason to hurry to pass them. It's got plenty of time, one holds you up a bit. And, of course, with the power of the Ferrari, it's made very much easier for Tambay. And really to keep the concentration going well, because it's the easiest time to make a mistake is when you're not driving absolutely flat out and you're taking things a bit easy. So when you're leading a race and you're of course not going absolutely flat out, you don't want to strain the car, you want to nurse it to put as little strain on everything as possible. Don't use the full revs of the engine and that sort of thing. Don't throw it about too much in the corners. And then, as I say, your biggest problem is to keep your concentration absolutely sharp and down to the thing home. But it's really a shame we've had such a processional race today. It's all, and there you see Tambay is following Keke Rosberg, who's the third placeman, and he's about to lap him. And that rather underlines the now very big gap we've got between the turbocharged cars and the normally aspirated. And it does come to the point where I think that Formula One has got to look pretty carefully about changing their regulations to try and get it a bit more equal, because as we've seen now, this is the third race running where we've basically been faced with a crashing bore as far as close motor racing is concerned.
Well, let us say this, that if there was one thing that the desperately downcast Ferrari team needed. It was what is happening now, because they were just about recovering from the dreadful death of their much beloved Gilles Villeneuve, with Didier Pironi taking over the reins and doing extremely well, when yesterday's Ferrari tragedy, an almost exact replica of what had happened to Gilles Villeneuve, but thankfully with far less severe results, although heaven knows severe enough. And they were really down in the dumps last night, and they got their act together this morning. I was watching them in the warm-up, and they were going through all their procedures. I won't say with obviously less enthusiasm, but I know that obviously they were desperately miserable. Now they are seeing, as Patrick Tambay comes through to complete his 41st lap, you'll see the number change shortly, the prospect of Ferrari winning again, because Pironi won in Holland, Pironi won in San Marino. They have had 2 victories this year, and so have Barbara McLaren, so have the Brabham organisation. So Ferrari will be moving ahead, but in terms of the Manufacturers' Championship, as we watch Patrick Tambay closing on Keke Rosberg, Tambay the race leader, and there is René Arnoux in 2nd place. As far as the Manufacturers' Championship is concerned, Ferrari will move into the lead at the end of this race, assuming that Patrick Tambay wins it, because when the German Grand Prix began, and Tambay is now ahead of Keke Rosberg, when the German Grand Prix began, Ferrari were 2 points behind the McLaren Ford team as far as the Manufacturers' Championship was concerned, and they will now be moving ahead. And Tambay is not so very far off the end of lap 42 now, as he goes through one of the 3 chicanes which have been specially built at this Hockenheim circuit, and you can see how distinctive it is. Solid pine forest to the left and the right as the drivers go down the 2, I can't call them straights because they are curves, interspersed with chicanes. And in yesterday's practice conditions, when it was raining very, very heavily, this was an appalling place to be, because the rain was coming down, it was bouncing off the roads, there was no breeze, the trees held the moisture, and it just did not clear away. And the result was each car was just a great big ball of spray going along, albeit with a red light inside it at the back of the car, which is obligatory in bad conditions. But it was nearly impossible to see anything at all. Tambay coming through to complete another lap.
When you asked me earlier, Murray, what the driver would be doing with a comfortable lead towards the end of the Grand Prix, one thing I didn't get to mention, which it appears to me he may have done, and that is to turn the boost in his turbocharger down, because Tambay doesn't look to be going quite as fast on the straight as he was earlier in the race relative to Rosberg's car. So I suspect with a comfortable lead, turns the boost right back on the turbocharger, probably reduces the power of the engine by anything up to 100 horsepower, which is absolutely fine for the purposes of cruising around, and of course further protects the engine from eating itself.
Tambay now is on his 43rd lap. He has 2 laps only to go at the end of this one. It would be bitter gall if anything happened to the car, and it must be very unlikely, because as a generalization, if a turbo engine these days gets to half distance, it will do the whole distance. There appears to be nothing wrong with the suspension or the handling of the car, which was designed incidentally by the British Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite, who now lives out in Maranello, working for the Ferrari organisation. And last year's car, which had a very, very evil reputation for handling, has been absolutely transformed by the work that Harvey Postlethwaite has done on it, and in combination with the reliable and tremendously powerful V6 turbocharged Ferrari engine, has very much made it a winner. Patrick Tambay then, this is the end, or very shortly will be, of his 43rd lap as he goes into the Sachs curve in front of those 80,000 Germans. That's the 2nd gear bend. He accelerates away now, changes up into 3rd gear. for the Elf curve. Now the Opel curve, which leads in turn into the start and finish straight. Watch the number change to 43. Now, and Patrick Torbay is on his 44th and last lap but one. He's ahead of Keke Rosberg. And the positions are Torbay leading by 17 seconds from René Arnoux in second position in the Renault. You may see, although I think the director will naturally be favouring the Ferrari in the closing stages of the race, you may see the Renault of René Arnoux, who looks as though he has overcome his bad luck jinx, which affected him so much this year, because having won the French Grand Prix, finished third in South Africa. There are the positions after 42 laps. Torbay leading Arnoux with Rosberg third, Alboreto fourth, Giacomelli fifth, and Mark Surer scoring a welcome point for the Arrows team. Giacomelli towards us now, Torbay towards us on his 44th lap. Keke Rosberg, as James has pointed out, holding on. And I'm sure that that is because Torbay is going slower rather than because Rosberg is going faster, because I'm sure Keke too will be driving for points. He's in 5th position in the World Championship with 23 points, and he's in the running for 4 points now if he finishes in 3rd position. Into the stadium for the last time but one, Patrick Torbay. And we will soon be able to go round on what should be his last and victorious lap, on his way to his first Grand Prix victory.
Yes, Torbay has sensibly and correctly slowed right down, because René Arnoux has closed the gap up a fair bit in the last few laps. Gone back, Torbay's gone backwards towards him by a good five or more seconds. But a good workmanlike win for Patrick Torbay. He's driven a very steady race. The car has worked perfectly for him, and the main opposition, he's beaten the Renaults fair and square. Of course, Prost was out early on, and a very sound victory for Ferrari, because had they had Pironi or a number one driver, the Ferrari would be a lot quicker. Pironi dominated practice, and the car is obviously going very well indeed now. Mind you, the turn of speed of the Gran-Pri BMW was once again amazingly impressive, and it was only that ridiculously bad piece of driving by Salazar taking out Nelson Piquet that stopped him going towards what was looking like a very comfortable victory for Piquet, assuming that all went well with his supposed pit stop. But he was certainly piling on the gap fast enough to be able to do a pit stop and pull away. So here comes Patrick Torbay down the last main straight with a chicane in the middle of it for the last time. He can just about push it to the finish line from there.
Well, a wonderful imminent victory, the first one for Patrick Torbay, and the 70-something, I think, for Ferrari in their long Grand Prix history, and never was a win more merited by either firm or driver. Torbay into the stadium for the last time, and I can see Italian flags waving in the background. There is an enormous cheer as Torbay goes into the Sachs curve for the last time. To the Elf and Opel curves, there is Keke Rosberg, who will come home and finish lapped in 3rd position. The checkered flag is going out. The Ferrari mechanics are already out in the road, and Patrick Torbay has won the German Grand Prix, his first win in his career. Never was a win more deserved, and that will really get the Ferrari tails up. René Arnoux finishing in 2nd position. In 3rd position, as we know, Keke Rosberg, who has been lapped. Michele Alboreto in 4th position. Bruno Giacomelli in 5th position, and Mark Surer 6th.
パトリック・タンベイ F1 での初優勝は33歳と43日。現在まで95人のチャンピオンが F1、優勝ウィナーが誕生しているんですが、
Patrick Torbay, der sich als zum ersten Mal in die Siegerlisten des Großen Preises von Deutschland hier in Hockenheim einträgt. Zweiter René Arnoux, Wieder 6 Punkte für ihn nach dem Sieg im letzten großen Preis von Frankreich. Dritter dann Keke Rosberg, vierter Alboreto, fünfter Giacomelli und sechster Marc Sura, der, um es noch einmal zu sagen, ein bravouröses Rennen gefahren ist, vom letzten Startplatz weg. Der Sieger Patrick Tambay empfängt den Beifall auf der Streckenposten. Es ist oft so gewesen, dass der Sieger des großen Preises von Deutschland am Ende auch der Weltmeister wurde. Hier wird es mit ganz großer Sicherheit nicht so sein. Das ist der Stand in der Weltmeisterschaft. Didier Pironi führt noch mit 39 Punkten vor John Watson mit 30. Die beiden haben heute ja keine Punkte bekommen. Aufgeschlossen hat Keke Rosberg auf 27 Punkte, dann Alain Prost, der hier ebenfalls ausgeschieden ist mit 25 Punkten. Niki Lauda 24 Punkte. Und der erste und der zweite, Patrick Tambay auf Ferrari und René Arnoux auf dem Renault, beide auf Turbo, die überlegenen Sieger dieses großen Preises von Deutschland. Und damit geben wir zurück in die Sendezentrale zu Magdalena Müller.
Reste à se poser une question, n'est-ce pas Daniel? S'agit-il bel et bien d'une consolation pour Enzo Ferrari qui a perdu son pilote préféré Gilles Villeneuve, qui voit pratiquement maintenant Didier Pironi à la fin de sa carrière, car il faudra de longs mois de rééducation avant de revoir Didier Pironi jouir pleinement de tous ses moyens physiques. Et peut-être que, en tout cas là, pour le clan Tyrrell, une image de joie certaine. Mais cette victoire de Patrick Tambay, cette victoire de Ferrari, a tout de même encore un arrière-goût amer, arrière-goût d'accident, de drame, celui qui a coûté la vie à Gilles Villeneuve et aussi celui qui a...
このうち75番目という、やはり後方の方の記録になります。さあ、そしてこれがスタートですけれども、
ここはね、あるの非常にこう、
そうですよね、
良かったんですけどね。でもこれこのスタートシーンはね、案外珍しいですよ。
はい、
当時は当然トラクションコントロールとか、ありませんからね、それなのに必要以上にホイールスピンさせてしまうドライバーがいなくて、みんなスッと動き出してますよね。
はい、
はい、
そしてタンベイはアルヌーをパスして順位を上げてきました。そしてトップを走っていたピケとサラザール。
サラザールもコーナーに向けて減速するとか、はい、切り込むっていうアクションが見えませんでしたもんね。
そして2発入って1発空振り。
なんか殴ったという